Hey, everybody. Welcome to the GMI Rocket Show. Today is a very special edition of the show for a couple of reasons. So, number one, it is episode number 50, which is a really wonderful round number. We're halfway to 100, which is just, again, some of these episodes I'm thinking crazy. I can't believe that this show has been going on for so long and I've had so many great conversations. So, very excited. It's episode number 50. I'm also, for anybody watching live, streaming this from my cabin. So I hope you enjoy the new sort of rustic background. But the real reason, of course, we're here is to talk to our very awesome special guest today. So our guest today is John Dorer, who is the founder of Immigration Office Solutions. So Immigration Office Solutions, they've been around for over 20 years, supporting immigration law firms and in-house teams with helping them with back-end immigration help. So basically helping them put petitions together and deal with RFEs and draft documents, collect documents, et cetera. John and his company, they've built an entire in-house sort of technology solution, case management and a tracking solution. And they have this really cool tool. It's basically a prevailing wage calculator that anybody could use. It's a free calculator. If you go on their website, it's there. So John has been sort of kind of an unsung hero, I want to say, in the immigration space, helping all these law firms do really, really great work over the years and building really cool tech. And so I'm really excited to have him on the show. So John, thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate it. And I'm excited to dive into your story, just in part because you've both touched so many people in the industry for so long. Yet you're not out there everywhere, from like a branding and marketing perspective. And so I'm excited to sort of learn about your story and also share it with the audience.
Yeah, totally. I've been a big fan of yours for a long time. I don't know if you remember way back when I reached out to you for a demo of Laborless, and you were at an ALA conference. I'm not sure where it was, but you kind of like jumped out of whatever room you were in and you did the demo for me kind of on the fly. And I really appreciated that. I mean, that was back before you were a LinkedIn superstar. I think when blogging was kind of your main outreach tool. But yeah, I mean, I've been a big fan of everything you've been doing. I think it's been, helping others form networks that kind of weren't available before. So the framework that you've, are kind of providing through GMI Rocket, through your LinkedIn courses, through your posts, it's all so inclusive and so positive. And, I know I respond to it, and I think others respond to that vibe as well. So thank
John,
you. If there's ever an Immigration Hall of Fame, you're a first ballot nominee, I think.
That's too kind. I appreciate it. This show is about you, but I very much appreciate that. That means a lot to me. That was probably in 2018 when we first kind of chatted about Laborless, right, when we launched. Before we jump in, for folks who are watching, we've already got a comment in. Please, for anybody watching, let us know who you are, where you are, where you're based, what you do, etc. Give yourself a shout out. Obviously, ask John any questions, ask us to clarify anything. Let's dive deep. I love having this live conversation. Most podcasts are recorded sort of in private and then it's broadcast out, which is great too. But I really do love doing these live because we do get to have that sort of back and forth. So for folks who are watching, let us know who you are, where you are, what you do, if you have any questions. We do have a couple of comments already. Marco Scano says, "Hey, Roman Zelchenko, ready for the show." Awesome. Thank you, Marco. And Geetha, a big fan. I appreciate it, Geetha. Thank you so much. And Tony Shu as well. Congratulations on the 50th episode. I know, it's crazy. It is literally crazy to me. This was like just the kind of a thing that I thought I would give it a shot last year during the when the pandemic was really at its peak or peaking in New York City. And it's become a thing, and I've been so honored and just blessed to have these great conversations. So thank you all for the comments. So John, thank you again for that intro as well. I'm excited to learn about your journey. I feel like when we met, both a number of years ago when you're at the ALA conference, and just as we've gotten to know each other, especially virtually. You post so much amazing information. You're an expert, you're an immigration expert, but you're not a lawyer, as far as I understand, unless you're also in the background a lawyer and you're not telling anybody. But you've been supporting the immigration industry in a number of ways for over 2 decades. We'll get to that. We're going to jump into that as well. But I'd love to start sort of with the person and their background, right? And sort of where they're from, what makes them tick, and of course how that eventually led to for you starting Immigration Office Solutions. So I know that you're in New York right now. Are you originally from New York, or did you grow up in the area?
No, I was raised in Cleveland, outside of Cleveland, Ohio.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, and in the suburbs. I had a pretty idyllic suburban upbringing. Lots of sports over the summer. In high school, I really kind of, I think that's when the entrepreneurial bug kind of bit me. I had my first job early in my high school years as at the grocery store, newspaper routes before that, house painting, lawn care, things like that. And I think really what appeals to me is the freedom of kind of being able to do what you want, to grow something where there was nothing before. So I guess that's always kind of been with me. After high school, I went to Ohio State for a couple of years, but I was really more interested in just about everything outside the classroom than in the classroom. Tried a bunch of different ventures. In my 20s, I moved around a lot. I was a set painter in Florida at Universal Studios when they were building that.
Wow.
I got tired of that, and this is all pre-internet, and so the way that I researched where I wanted to go next was I went to the library, I pulled out all the Sunday papers, and I looked at what cities had the most jobs and the lowest rent, and kind of did a little algorithm, and I ended up in Baltimore. I was working building decks. There was a big construction boom back then. Wound up back in Florida, got my degree in marketing at USF. And so this is like late 90s, I guess. And had a little money saved. And this was kind of when everybody started talking about paradigm shift, when AOL was on the front page of every paper. Amazon was just starting, and everything was dial-up then, and so it was just everything was frustratingly slow. But yeah, that's kind of my teens and 20s years leading up to kind of where I got into the immigration space.
You mentioned that you said you were kind of bit by the entrepreneurial bug, I guess, in high school. Did you start a little, you mentioned lawn care and things like that. Is that what you were doing? Did you get a lawnmower and just go around the neighborhood, and charge however much and mow people's lawns?
Did that, and then started doing house painting and got a crew together, had to buy insurance, had to figure out the whole, buying ladders and all that, and getting jobs, and and I really I enjoyed the thrill, I guess, of seeing it being created.
Yeah. I mean, any business, whether it's a local painting business or Amazon, right, or anything in between, is creating something out of nothing, at some point. And I guess at every point, every time you want to try a new service or a product, you have to sort of take that risk and pull the resources together and get the word out and things like that. So when you first went to, you said when you first went to college, you said Ohio State.
Ohio State,
right? And then I guess you didn't finish. You went around and you sort of explored different opportunities in different parts of the country, and then you eventually ended up in Florida. Were you majoring in business or marketing when you were when you were in Ohio State, or were you kind of doing something more maybe technical or scientific or something like that?
Yeah, good question. No, I was in business.
Okay.
I was, in the early years. So I really hadn't declared a major. It would have been marketing.
Mm-hmm.
But I just had too many thoughts and ideas in my head, and I just didn't want to be in a classroom anymore. And I wanted to kind of explore the world a little bit.
Yeah, I can imagine. Yeah. Especially if you're in a college class, and the college class is about building business and about marketing. And if you have these ideas, it's like, well, why am I sitting here learning about it? If I have the ideas, let me go actually implement it in the real world, which is
exactly. Or it was part that, and then also, I really didn't know what I wanted to do, and I just felt like I needed to see more out there. What's out there, and so that kind of led me wandering a little bit.
So you ended up in Florida. You graduated with a degree in marketing in the like you said in the 90s, and this was when, to your point, AOL was. I mean, I remember getting the CDs, at home, and the latest AOL, and also kind of any free computer. I remember I loved free computer games, because I was a kid. I wasn't able to get all the computer games I wanted. My parents were like, no way. But sometimes you get a little taste of just little. And the world was so different. But the internet was still very, it was dial up, and there wasn't a lot available. But to your point, you were kind of, I guess, hearing and seeing that things were changing. When you graduated, did you sort of think to yourself, I should do something, I should build a business, or maybe I should get a job with, something related to online or the internet?
Yeah. So when I went back to school, I was much more focused, and I was ready to take it all in and learn. And so, I felt a little more prepared and confident coming out of USF. It was an incredible experience. This was before any of these real estate booms that were in the 2000s. I was living on the beach around Clearwater Beach. And I think I was paying $400 a month for a little shack literally on the beach. I was waiting tables at a restaurant, and I was going to the St. Pete campus of USF. So I don't think I even owned a pair of pants for like 2 years. I just had shorts and flip-flops. And it was like, this is awesome. But when I graduated, I was like, I can't do this forever. I need to get serious. And I kind of wanted to, I was developing some ideas, and I wanted to look at businesses and industries that had not really taken advantage of advances in technology. And the biggest advance in technology at the time was the internet. And so I was really interested in exploring that. I had a good friend who had one of the most awesome jobs. He was a boat mechanic for, for kind of yachts, right? But he was kind of a mobile mechanic, so he would kind of go out to the yacht. If the engine wasn't working, he knew what to do, and he'd go fix it. And we got to chatting, and he was like, I said, well, why don't we? What if we put, because this was kind of a thing that people were doing, why don't we sell boat parts on the internet, right? This is like 99. So, I registered a domain, discountmarinesource.com. And it was just HTML basically. There was nothing else, which was good because it was kind of simple. And I really, it was dial-up, so you really didn't want a lot of bells and whistles because it would really slow down the loading time. And I spent hours and hours and hours building the database of all the parts. So we started to make money. People would fax. They would fax the credit card payment. That was still.
Can I want to ask you here, if I can, how did you get clients? Because there's no social media. You weren't, I guess, running ads, or maybe you were. How are you getting people onto the website? Or was it just like there's nothing available, and so if people wanted boat parts, they had to come to you?
It was like there was nothing available. I mean, there was, marketing was SEO, but this was pre-Google, so you're optimizing for Yahoo, Alta Vista, a lot of these names that are no longer even players. Yes. And so it wasn't that difficult because it was so early. What happened was the demise of discountmarinesource.com was that we later found out that there was a dealership network that kind of controlled all the distribution. And so, at one point we had an order for an actual Yanmar boat engine, like $12,000 boat engine, that goes on sailboats. But the dealer in that area kind of raised a fuss because that was his territory. And we realized that we wouldn't be able to scale it. So, but it was a great learning experience. It really showed me the opportunities with SEO at the time. And so I was in Florida. My grandfather had just passed away and left me a very small inheritance. And I was kind of tired of driving around. I'd been in New York before, and I just wanted to go to a place where I didn't have to drive everywhere and waste time in my car like you do in Florida. And I could just kind of hunker down and focus on something. And I knew that, there were plenty of opportunities in New York. So I came to New York. One of my first jobs, I was a manager at American Festival Cafe at Rockefeller Center, one of those restaurants at Rock Center, where I met my future wife. And did that for a while. Then I got a job selling Yellow Page ads. Nice. And on one of my calls, I wound up in an immigration lawyer's office. And it was like this flurry of activity, just like paper everywhere, chaos everywhere, people everywhere. And we got to talking. I went there with the intention of selling him the Yellow Page ad. But we got to talking. He was asking questions. I was asking questions. I learned that immigration law is federal, and so he could, feasibly serve clients in all 50 states. And I said, well, why don't we, as I looked around the room, I saw a lot of low tech, not a lot of high tech. And I said, well, this might be a good candidate for, an industry or business that would benefit from some new technology that's out. And so we set up a domain. We kind of had an agreement where I would do the marketing, build up the business, and then he would teach me how to prep cases, because he kind of didn't have time for any of the work that would come from it. And so we kind of organized it that way, and that's how Immigration Office Solutions was born.
So, wow. So you were selling Yellow Page ads. I'm curious. I want to get into a little bit like the mindset when you were selling Yellow Page ads. Were you thinking this is it, like this is my career, I want to grow, or were you thinking like this is another kind of job, another learning opportunity? Because it sounds like you're clearly at work for your employer, but you're still thinking about what's my next big idea.
It was definitely not my chosen career path.
Got it. Yeah, okay.
Let's be clear. Okay. No, it was a way to pay the bills. I was new to New York. I just needed something to some cash flow. I was a little bummed that Discount Marine Source didn't work. And I was, I was on the prowl. I was on the lookout for something.
So at this point, were you thinking to yourself, okay, this internet thing, I'm for sure going to do something. I'm going to do something that's on web-based or tech related, because you could have started a bigger painting company, right? Or you could have just imported boat parts and become a dealer. But it sounds like you were thinking, okay, I'm going to do something with the internet. If the boat part business didn't work, I'm going to just replicate that kind of model to some extent in a different industry. And so when you got to this immigration lawyer's office and you started looking around and the idea came to you, I'm assuming at the time this immigration lawyer did not have a website, right?
No website. Nope.
No website. And so therefore, no kind of digital marketing. There's no way to find this person other than going word of mouth or going to maybe, Yellow Pages, which is, I guess, why you were there. So, and was it hard? I mean, it sounds almost like luck was so much on your side here, because I imagine a lot of people, I mean, even now there are a lot of immigration and other lawyers, right? And just many professionals who kind of are very skeptical of new technology and maybe don't want to put if they're busy, they don't want to put their effort into something that they're unsure of, right? Did you find it difficult to convince this attorney, or do you think that you just found someone who was like, hell yeah, this sounds like it's going to, transform my business. Let's go for it.
Yeah. I mean, I framed it as, you have nothing to lose. Let's organize this. So I'm doing the work, in terms of building the site, marketing. Your team will kind of teach me about case prep, about immigration processing. We'll do like one case type at a time, and let's just see what happens. It was like, I mean, if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. But you have nothing to lose, and the signs of change were everywhere. Like I said, I mean, people were aware of this shift that was happening. It was early, but they were still aware. And so, yeah, he's like, why not?
I'm just curious, because I think this is really cool. Because in a way, for, maybe anybody who's watching or listening, and perhaps if they're thinking about starting their own business, you didn't just come out and build the app and start finding clients, right? Which a lot of technology companies do. You basically found a person who had a problem that you worked with them to solve that problem. And through that, that learning experience was almost your MVP, right? Like you kind of were able to build this business I guess the risk was on you because you were building it. But at the same time, you already had a built-in clientele. So I think that was really interesting. How did you structure it in the sense that, okay, there's nothing to lose for for this lawyer, so they're clearly not paying you to build this, I guess, or were they?
No. I was paid on the case prep side.
Got it. So you said, I'm going to build this. So you basically said, look, let me get you on the web. When we do that, your inbound, work coming in from SEO and other things is going to go through the roof. When you get that extra work, I'll also help you handle that work if you basically train me kind of effectively as a paralegal, right? But so you built the sort of inbound marketing engine, which is a web presence, and then you said, I'll help you and then we'll split the what you make from those cases that I bring in through the site.
Similar, yeah. It was a per case payment, almost like we have now, where it's just the attorney pays a flat fee for the case prep. But yeah, basically.
Got it. That's super cool. Yeah. So I mean, for you, the kind of the risk there was spending your time and effort and resources to build this site and to kind of get it so that people can find it online. But then I suppose you're probably picking up a lot of skills along the way, that maybe you've already learned through the boat parts business, but now you're honing skills.
Exactly. And even though financially the boat part business was a failure, it was a success in a lot of ways, because it showed me that that the concept works, that, you build this, you do SEO, you rank, and if you can rank in the top page on almost any search engine, you're going to get interest, whether it's somebody calling you, faxing you, submitting the form request. And so that gave me confidence that it was, I had no idea what the response would be with on the immigration side, but I knew that it was worth pursuing because I saw it work with Discount Marine Source. And so, it was like, it seemed like the juice was worth the squeeze, basically.
How did you, okay, so you did that. You've now started the site and you're now learning from this lawyer and you're helping this attorney. You're also, kind of building up this infrastructure. How did you then sort of get that second client, or were you thinking about the second client? Like, I guess my question is, how did you end up scaling something that sounds like it was a service for this firm to effectively your own business that can service multiple law firms and other sort of immigration teams? How did that happen?
Yeah. For a long time, it was just that one firm. And it was, so this was like 2000, 2001, and we focused on H-1Bs. And we just started getting traffic. We just started getting clients, and it was almost a challenge. I mean, the challenge was for me to kind of be able to scale my side of the business to handle the business that was coming in from this one client. And so it was like that for a long time. And so SEO was the only game in town. Greg Siskind was probably the only other major player, in those early days. And so, I saw the effectiveness of listing flat fees, and people responded to that pretty well. And so, there was years back then where the H-1B quota was crazy, and it was a huge part of our business, and it was just like 24-hour days as we led up to filing time.
Wow. Yeah. That's unbelievable. It brings me back to my H-1B cap days. And of course it's nothing in comparison, but absolutely. And if you're able to get a lot of cases in, right? I mean, you have to just do them all by one date. You can't just stagger them. That's really exciting. You were there. So it sounds like you were thinking to yourself, all right, in order for me to continue to support this one lawyer as the business is growing, I need to operationalize the way I'm providing the support to this client, right? So is that sort of where you started to think about, all right, maybe I can leverage technology, my own technology, to sort of manage my caseload that I'm getting from this lawyer, and to sort of have, status trackers or whatever it is that you were thinking about? Is that kind of, can you talk a little bit about how you started to think about building your own tech, websites tech too, but an internal sort of tracking case management type of tool? How did that get started?
Yeah, it became clear that early on that a systematized approach would be required. I feel so lucky and so fortunate that, that my timing was good and I was kind of doing this at that time. But what I learned was that, number one, there can be no errors. It's a no error tolerance policy. You just can't. Like, no matter if it takes you 5 days to prepare a case, there can be no errors. And so, but the work is monotonous also. Back then it was a lot of copying and pasting, and you just kind of drift on into robotic mode sometimes, and your team members will do that when they're working by the hour, and care as much as you care because it's not their business. So, and so I just, I looked at everything I could do, number one, to reduce errors to zero. Having at least 3 sets of eyes see everything, making sure that people weren't working when they were tired on important things, eye strain, all these little things that you might not normally think about. So just set up a systematized process to do that. That was number one. Number two was super fast response times, because as our work as a case manager, very often with almost all the attorneys now and with the attorney then, we're communicating with the client to get the documents and to get the information. And so response time is very important, making sure we have what they need, making sure we're answering their questions quickly. Because the general, it's changed a lot, but in the early days of the internet, a lot of lawyers had a 24-hour email policy, like I'll respond to your email within 24 or 48 hours. And that was kind of the standard. And so when we would almost respond before they finished typing to clients, that was the best word of mouth you could get. So that helped growth, but that also kind of became an important principle of ours. And then once we got those two down, then said, let's work on the back end. Let's try to make our process more efficient, so we can make it more profitable. But by far the most important element then and now is the no error, is the no error process system.
How did you go about building this? Did you have, like a sort of a CTO type partner, or did you outsource, or did you build it yourself? Did you learn all the development on your own?
I did. I designed it, and I had, so this was probably 06, 05, 06, 07. And I had a developer who I was working with on some WordPress website stuff when I kind of had to transition just from HTML to onto WordPress for the main site. But that's kind of when I got into working with a developer, and I would develop the framework, my wish list, my required list, and we kind of built it from there, and we kept it simple. What do we want to do? We want the client to be able to log in. They can, number one, they can fill out their questionnaire in a secure environment. They can upload their documents in a secure environment, and they can check the status of their case 24/7. And so that was the idea. And then on our side, we would check the data from their questionnaire, make sure it was all clean, and then it populates the forms and letters, and we can make that case prep part as efficient as possible for us.
That's really cool. I'm curious how you were thinking about competitors on the market, or were you not even thinking about them? There were, Zoom was out, Tracker was out, Visa Now was available. Were those ever systems that you thought about just using on your own? And then you decided, why wouldn't you do that? Or was it because you used them and you said, what, I kind of have my own ideas of how I want to do it?
Yeah. We demoed INS Zoom early on. We demoed Tracker early on. And the one thing that I think those products are great. I'm not, this is in no way a knock at all. But the one thing that bothered me was the lack of the ability to customize with the changes that I wanted. And it's completely understandable. I mean, you have to have you have to build a product where you're kind of appealing to a large number of people, and you can't just you can't do that for the price you're charging. But yeah, there were features that I thought that, I would do this differently. I would do that differently. And I said, you know what, let me see if we can build our own. And we were able to.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, very often, right? It's like, part of how I built or started Laborless is because I looked around and I said, this doesn't exist in the marketplace right now in terms of technology. And it should be possible for law firms and, H-1B employers to be able to sort of post their LCAs electronically and, manage their public access files in a way that's streamlined and kind of done for them. And that was it was kind of like, I'm sure somebody here can build it, right? I mean, Amazon could build anything, Microsoft can build anything, but where's the attention going? And so my thought was, the attention is not going to this particular thing. Let's sort of build it ourselves. So I can totally understand that. It's never to knock companies. It's just that you look at a company and you say, look, what you have is great. You don't have the thing that I want you to have. Now, are you going to build it, or is it never going to happen? If it's never going to happen, no matter how great your platform is, I want the thing that I want. And so I'm going to have to go and build it myself. At this point, I'm curious, were you bootstrapping this? Were you just sort of taking the money that was coming in from the business and paying this developer or development team to effectively create your own case management platform?
Yeah, absolutely. I've bootstrapped from day one. And so, I'm glad you brought that up, because, that's a big, I've found in my experience, a lot of my time and a lot of my luck comes in finding a developer who can do what I want them to do, I can communicate with, and is in my price range, right? Because, a lot of the stuff that we're doing is speculative. There's no guaranteed payout. And so you really have to be careful about how much you're spending on new initiatives. And so, even to this day, that's my process. I mean, I have a lot of things that I'd like to do, but, it depends on finding the right developer at the right price. And I've been, I feel like I've been really, really fortunate to have found the team that I have now.
So let's talk a little bit about your team. You started off as a support system effectively for this one attorney. It sounds like you, in parallel, were starting to build out a system to support your own business, supporting this attorney, because the volumes were getting really, the volume was getting quite high. And then you started, it sounds like, to go after additional attorneys. When did it become Immigration Office Solutions? And sort of how did you, when did that growth start, where you said, all right, let me go on to the second law firm, third law firm, et cetera?
Pretty recently, actually. Like in the past 4 or 5 years.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. I mean, there was just kind of a shift in the environment, in my relationship with the that partner that client that I've been with before, and so pretty recently, and
that's super exciting. And so let's talk about maybe what is Immigration Office Solutions? First of all, I got to say, I was going to ask you, usually it's like, how did you come up with the name? But, this is as clear as day. I would like to note that both this name and your, is Discount Boat Parts?
Discount Marine Source.
Discount Marine Source. You're a very straightforward guy when it comes to naming your companies. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about what you do. Which I think
appreciate
is
that. Well, I mean, this is I'm this was back like 20 years ago when there wasn't much competition for domain
Right.
names. So.
Right. That's right. No, but I think it's great because people, it is cool to have an interesting name. You think about Amazon or Microsoft or, one of these types of names, but there's also a lot of value in just, if I know the name of the company, I know exactly what they do. I'll never forget there's a diner, or maybe it was a restaurant. I went there once a long time ago, but it was called Eat Here Now in Midtown. And I remember I was walking by, I forgot what I was doing, and I saw the sign that said Eat Here Now, and I was like, okay, I will. And I went there and I ate, and it was, good. It was good. But I love that. I'll never forget
it. The ultimate call to action. Yeah.
It's the ultimate call to action. Exactly. So right. So I love this idea of kind of, this is what the company is called and this is what we do. Can you just shed a little bit of light on how does Immigration Office Solutions work? Who's your target audience? Is it just immigration law firms? Is it also in-house immigration teams, maybe at a bigger company that needs some more support? Is it something more than that? Who's your target kind of client, I guess? And how do you come in and kind of work with them?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I have a hard time answering that because it's a little bit of everything right now. It's attorneys who are super experienced, who've been around a long time and are kind of in the twilight of their career and are just, they just want to do consultations. They want to have a small team, and they don't want to have an office full of paralegals. And they want someone like me where they can work closely with and seamlessly with, and take care of the whole case from beginning setup to approval notice.
Mm-hmm.
We've got young, new attorneys who, perhaps focus on asylum cases, for example, but they get inquiries about H-1Bs, PERMs, I-140s, et cetera. And they don't want to turn away that business, but they don't really have the infrastructure to scale. And we work great in an environment like that because, it's a fixed cost. And you know what our cost is when you're talking to the client and when you're pricing how you're going to price for that H-1B or for that PERM. And so there's just a lot of transparency where they don't have to worry about hustling because the work is slowing down and they don't want to, move their paralegal to part-time, or if the paralegal doesn't show up, or whatever the case may be. So, we try to fill that gap in the market.
So you can effectively help a law firm or a lawyer like that sort of scale their business without having to scale their team.
That's exactly what we do. Yeah.
Yeah. And what about in-house teams? Is there a way for you to support that as well?
We do work with in-house teams, and it's pretty similar. There are scenarios where they'll have a team member that will work with us and will prep the case and give it back to them if they don't want us communicating with the beneficiary, or in other cases they do want us communicating with the beneficiary for employment-based cases, and it works out well. It's the same idea. It's they don't have to worry about building up an infrastructure or a systemized process because we already have that on our side, and we can usually deliver the case to them, at a lower cost, faster.
I want to take one quick pause here. We got just a few comments. So the H-1B guy from YouTube says, "Congrats on the 50th episode." So thank you so much on that. And great question. I forgot what that question was. I think it was something about earlier on when you were sharing about some of the work that you were doing around the country. Hi, Michael. Congrats on the 50th show. Thank you so much. Marianne says, so much in a name, and kudos to John for picking great ones. Absolutely. What's in a name? Shakespeare asked, but apparently a lot. There's a lot in a name. Ben Cross says, what's up, Roman? Hope everyone is well. Thank you, Ben, for joining. So Ben used to have a Monday through Friday show at 4 o'clock. I didn't realize that when I put this on, it was at the same time. But I think he's Monday through Thursday now, so I could actually catch him sometimes, as you know, at the same time. So thanks, Ben, for your comment. Syed says, thank you for bringing real life stories of the immigration battlefield. Absolutely. I think part of what I really love about your story, genuinely, is that you're, I mean, for lack of a better word, in the background a little bit, right? Just from the perspective of like, you're not a law firm, so you're not branding yourself as like getting immigration cases, but you do a lot of the actual important work in conjunction with a lot of the lawyers that you have worked with and you do work with. So I think it's particularly interesting because, there's a lot of incredible information you can get from the story of a known company, but some of it you can sort of piece together from press and things like that. I think this is super cool because you're sort of making things run, but very much in the background. And I think learning about how that comes together is great. Ian Haas says, congrats on the 50th show. Thank you, Ian. An awesome photo. And Josh, happy Friday all. Keep up the great content. Thank you, Josh. I appreciate it. So John, I want to ask you a question about something you were just mentioning. And maybe this is a challenging one. Maybe you have a great answer for it. If a law firm already has a case management platform, and let's say they want to come in and say, all right, I'm ready to scale, like I'm getting business or whatever their reason is, and they go to you and say, look, can you help support me with this work? Is that an issue? I mean, is it a challenge that you've built your own technology, but it's possible or likely that a lot of these firms sort of have their own tech? How do you deal with that?
That's not our typical client, and so great question. But we really haven't had to deal with it that much.
Got it.
It's the people that I think we work best with are ones that don't have that infrastructure, and that it would be it's essentially less expensive and faster to have us do it, is the short answer to that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So then what happens when they scale? Like they're scaling with you, they're growing with you. Is the idea for them to effectively stay with you as they grow and to continue to leverage sort of your technology? I guess, like looking forward, right? How do you help the entire ecosystem that you create with working with lawyers? How do you help all of that grow?
I'll answer this in a kind of a funny, indirect way. One of the attorneys that we work with just doesn't like to spend all that time in the office, but he's a great attorney. He knows a lot about a lot. He gives great consultations. He just doesn't like doing all the casework. He'd rather be out playing tennis. And so we take his caseload, we do the work. He essentially has probably 20 more hours in the week, and he's on the tennis court, moving up his ranking. And so, that's not everybody has that same story, but that's, to me, that's a win-win situation. And so, and depending on where you are in your career, career burnout is a real thing, in this business. I mean, I'll be 55 this year, and I've experienced different times where I'm like, sometimes it's just hard. And so, to have an option to free up more time to, if you want to go do yoga, if you want to go take a walk, you don't have to be in your office 12 hours a day taking care of all these cases.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that's kind of a simplified answer or a weird answer, but that's kind of what I'm experiencing with the people I work with.
Definitely. No, it makes a ton of sense, especially if you think about people who are at a point where they're in their career where they're happy where they are. They're not necessarily trying to work 60, 70, 80 hour weeks. But they also they want to support the clients that come in. So, or like you said, just get 20 extra hours back in their week. Who doesn't want that? So I think that's really cool. What do you think about, so I guess it's somewhat recent. It sounds like that you're starting to branch out and kind of grow the business. I mean, you've been doing this for a long time, but if I was to kind of map it out, right, like your business in terms of how many clients you had was effectively one major, that was the foundation of your business. And now, boom, it's up and to the right. Where do you, I guess, what's the trajectory for immigration? What do you want to see happen with the company? That'll be my first question. What do you want to see happen? What's your kind of goal or vision with the company?
Yeah, Immigration Office Solutions is one part of what I'm doing. It's a major part, but I'm also really interested in the evolution of the delivery of legal services and the evolution of it. I feel like we're kind of entering almost a golden age in terms of how different state bars are kind of loosening things up with alternative legal service providers and the ability for non-lawyers to partner with lawyers. And I think that there are really exciting times ahead, and I'm trying to, envision how that will work and position myself in that a little bit. One thing I'm working on that could be great. It could be a complete flop. I have no idea. So much money spent on technology is on the back end. Like a Fragment, BAL, these big companies, they've got huge technology budgets. And, I don't know exactly what they're doing, but I know that, that there's a lot of money spent on that. But even with my, modest technology operation, I would love to see everything kind of turned around and be customer facing, where, the attorney becomes even more important. And so, there's a consultation with the attorney, but once somebody knows what they want to, what they have to do, whether it's like an H4 extension, right? It's not super complicated. And so there could be an AI system that walks somebody through. There are variables, but not an unlimited number of variables in a simple application like that. And so, I'd like to see that hybrid of kind of attorney involvement and self-service in an application, in a front-end application.
I love it. Yeah. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, that's where the immigration industry is going. But to your point, the broader legal industry is going in that direction. This idea of utilizing more sophisticated technology to alleviate some of the work that probably doesn't need to be done by lawyers for sure, and potentially any people, I love it. It's called mountain technical difficulties. So yeah, so what I was saying was that it's great to have this opportunity to explore technology as a way to alleviate even more of what attorneys do. And it's interesting because, and I'm curious to hear your thoughts on, where you think immigration tech is going. Do you think it's going in the direction of, sort of this kind of DIY platforms? I mean, I put that in quotes because there's still sort of a lawyer in the mix, typically looking over a case. Or do you think it's more of like building technology to empower attorneys in new ways, right? So the law firm is still the main kind of business driver, and the back end in the law firm is a really sophisticated tool. Or maybe it's a combination of the two. Maybe it's something different. I'm curious to know sort of where you see the industry going, because you've been in it and tracking it and sort of building for it for the past 20 plus years.
Yeah. The short answer is both, but on the attorney side, and I'd love to hear your experience with this. I think attorneys are, in general, not bleeding edge adopters of technology, right? And it's understandable. The attorney is focused on the clients and the case, and getting a successful outcome for the clients. Their number one priority is not efficiency; it's the client. And so sometimes that mindset puts more attention on the client than on updating technology, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. And so yes, I think that market will continue to evolve on the attorney side. Maybe not as fast as all of us would like it, but it will. And I think that, and then on the other hand, on the DIY, I don't think, straight DIY is going to scale so much. I think I'm working with a new an AI firm right now, and we're basically trying to build a decision tree that has every possible outcome, and it's labor intensive up front, but if it works, it has all of the supposed to have all of the answers that an attorney would have for a particular case, all of the possible outcomes, if this, then that, for everything. Mm-hmm. And so I think that that AI powered instead of a DIY is going to probably gain traction the fastest, because I think that the rate of change in the AI environment is pretty quick right now. And I think that costs will come down, the amount of time developing will come down, and I think we'll see the benefits of that in applications, ideally in user-faced applications.
That's interesting. Yeah, that's super cool. AI is there are a bunch of people that I know that you probably know sort of in the immigration space that are really sort of focused on AI. And I think it's to see what's happening with artificial intelligence and how smart these systems are becoming, and how much information they have, the quality of that information, I guess, is getting better. That would be great. I mean, it would be assistance to human beings, right? To your point, it's not full DIY, but it's really, really high level assistance to human beings, so that the lawyer can really focus on the absolute thing that they're best at, which is, like you said, your clients are doing consultations, the human interaction, et cetera, and then let the research be done by the computers or the company in the back end. So I think that's super cool. My sort of question to you as we kind of come to a close here, and it's so cool to hear kind of where you've gone and the trajectory. Where what do you think what your target audience is, this sort of, both corporate teams and immigration law firms. If you were going to sort of share something along the way as you've come to understand who these people are, your target audience and the business, it sounds like, there were some failures and some successes, some great successes for new and upcoming immigration tech, I guess, entrepreneurs. What would you kind of recommend them that they think about? What would you recommend to them, in terms of, hey, I have an idea. I don't know if it's going to work. I don't have the technical skills, et cetera. There are a lot of things that hold people back. Based on everything that you've come up with and who you've come to target, what would be your wisdom, your words of wisdom or advice to kind of up and coming entrepreneurs in the space?
Great question. And I think that really the sky is the limit. A lot of, for example, what you did with Laborless, you didn't really enter a competitive environment with Laborless. You created something, and I'm sure it wasn't a direct line to the final product. There are, so in terms of mindset, be patient, get up and take a walk around the block. And I meant to say this earlier. I love your cabin. I love it when you post on your cabin. And as you know, I have a little cabin about 3 hours away from the city. And I'm always so busy in the city with work, with my family. I never spend enough time on each of them. But when I get in the car and when I drive, I can really think about long-term things. And so give your schedule that flexibility, I would say. Stay in the details of everything, but also take time and just go for a walk or whatever you do to kind of meditate and think about, because in those moments a lot of clarity comes back and you're like and breakthroughs really. So patience, persistence, and then being specific. There are so many. There's access to so much more now than back when I started, in terms of Upwork and places like that, where you can kind of post what you're trying to do, whether you want to get a new front end or a specific back end thing, or something's not working. And so really kind of try to build a system to work with people like that, because you're going to find you have to wade through a lot of people sometimes, but you will most likely find a developer or social media person or whatever who you just click with, and the price is right, and then things accelerate. So there'll be slow times, but be ready for those fast times too.
I love that. I wish I heard that 4 or 5 years ago. I totally agree with you. And the importance of taking a break is absolutely crucial. It's very easy to always do work because there's always something to be done. So I appreciate that. Also, I'm 2 hours north of the city, a little more. You're about 3 hours north. So that means we have to have a midway immigration tech in the Hudson Valley meetup.
Absolutely.
These days. And hey, if anyone's watching or listening and you're also in the area, let's make it happen. By the way, on that point, for anybody who is potentially watching live, I've posted about this. I'm going to post about it again, but on Thursday, the 29th, I've coordinated or organized a GMI Rocket kind of meetup, just of immigration and global mobility people in the New York City area. So if you're watching or listening to this live, and you're, on July 29th, this coming Thursday, if you're available and you want to hang out, let me know. Hit me up in the DMs or just comment or something like that, and I'll send you the info. I'm going to share it again. But anyway, just wanted to share that. John, thank you so much. This is really awesome. Your story is really inspiring, and I think it reminds people, and me for sure, that number one, you can build on your past quote unquote failures, right? For, you did something totally unrelated, and you kind of learned from that, and then you sort of had this idea. And number two, I think it shows that you can build a business the old-fashioned way by delivering value to a client, and learning and continuing to build, brick by brick along the way. It doesn't have to be this overwhelming thing of, I have to raise $4 million and I have to build this entire solution and then I start a company. Right. So I think it's a great reminder that starting a business to solve a problem first and foremost is an incredible way to still do it. It's not on the news all the time, but it is the way that millions of people start businesses probably each year. And of course, that can always grow and scale as well. So those are sort of some of my takeaways there. And I appreciate you sharing your story. By the way, where can people find you? immigrationofficesolutions.com, right?
Yeah, or John at immigrationofficesolutions.com.
Perfect. Well. John at immigrationofficesolutions.com. So if you have any questions for John or you want to work with John, please send the email. So John, I'm going to get back to my cabin. I'm going to let you start driving up north to your cabin. Yes, and thank you again for your time. This was great.
Roman, thank you. Thank you. Keep doing what you're doing. We all benefit from it.
I hope so. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Okay, buddy.
Thank you so much for sticking around. All the comments, I love it. I appreciate all the love. 50th episode. I know it's crazy, and not to make this about me, obviously, but it is still something that I'm very proud of and excited about. So thank you all for your comments and for sticking around and listening, and just chiming in. I really appreciate it. I see all the comments. I sometimes don't get a chance to put them up live here, but I definitely do see all of them. And I hope you all are chatting and commenting on each other's comments and sort of getting to know one another through the show and through the discussions here. So as always, have a wonderful weekend. I'm going to get back to doing some outdoor stuff while it's still light out in the cabin here in upstate New York. Wherever you are, stay safe, and see you next week on the next episode of the GMI Rocket Show. Peace out, everybody. Take care.